Throughout America, in the waning winter light, people gather. Strangers assure each other in low whispers you'll wipe them off the face of the earth. Some people feel shame. Others just stare solemnly, deeply, and say nothing. America is bleeding.
I ask that the Congress declare a state of war has existed between the United States and the Japanese Empire.
I remember when I lost my mind. There was something so pleasant about that place. Even your emotions have an echo in so much space. And when you're out there without care, yeah, I was out of touch. But it wasn't because I didn't know enough. I just knew too much. Does that make me crazy? Does that make me crazy? Does that make me crazy? Possibly. And I hope that you are having the time of your life. But think twice.
December 7th, 1941, the Japanese Air Force bombed Pearl Harbor, and it was devastating. Later, over 2,000 sailors died from that.
Bless your soul. You really think you're...
Moreau Packing Company, they're very famous for their bacon. They make all pork products, hams, all kinds of hams and smoked hams and things like that. And there were ads in the paper looking for people to come and work for them, because they had to produce a lot of different packages of food to ship out to the military depots wherever they were. So I took my first job with the repacking company. I worked there for a couple of months, and then there was a need for people to work in a radio assembly line. I went to a manufacturer that made radios for the military. There was an ad in the paper that came along in the Daily News. I'll always remember it. Look for people that want to work on ships, to build ships for the Navy. And I went to the Brooklyn Navy Yard. I used to take the trolley car to get there, right from in front of my mother's store. Get on the trolley car right down to the Brooklyn Navy Yard. And they trained me how to be an electric arc welder, all types of materials. And I passed the test. And the next thing I knew, I was working on the battleships. They were building two battleships, the Iowa and the Missouri. And I stood there for a little over a year. And we also were building the first big invasion barges. They were enormous size. They used to ship trucks and tanks and everything into these things all over the ocean, the Pacific Ocean. I helped build a battleship, an electric arc welder on the battleships. There's one period where they have what they call below the waterline of the battleships, where all your work on is galvanized, and the fumes are different than regular steel because it's waterproof stuff. The metal is made up different, and the fumes got into me, and I had to drink at least 3 quarts of milk a day to keep my lungs going because of the fumes that came off the electric arc and the welding that I was doing. And the white of my eye in time was turning yellow for all the welding I was doing during that period of time. And even after I left the Brooklyn Navy Yard, I still had it even when I came back from the service. There were hazardous conditions because I worked on the night shift, and there were sometimes you heard that a man was found dead or a young fellow was found dead in the lower bottom of the ships where they had to go in and do certain repairs. And they fell asleep. There's no heat when you're working on these here ships. They're sitting out in the water, the ships in the East River. I mean, they start on the land a little bit, but most of the ship is in the water. And it gets cold during the night. And the normal body would get tired from the long hours. The supervisors don't realize that a guy fell asleep. And after you fall asleep a certain amount of hours, the body, dies off. And then there were cases, too, where men on the planks that are put around the whole ship as it's building up to the top deck. In the wintertime, it gets icy and slippery. And once in a while, a guy would slip, and there'd be another casualties. And that happens all through the course of construction. I was only 18 years old when I took this job as an electric arc welder. And the men I worked with were much older. Some of them were old enough to be my father. They could have been in their 40s or 50s. You're doing this for hours and hours. It's not just an hour and then you go back to it. That's your whole shift, and all you're doing is welding. And we get a little break to have a little lunch or night snack that I bring from home.
Just one break in the 12 hours?
Yeah, that's all we got. These things happen. But it was great to work with the older guys. They were very intelligent about safety factors. All my friends were drafted, and I really didn't have guys to hang out with. And there were too many girls around. Really, it was crazy. Even though some of the girls were working in these factories too. And besides that, I didn't get much time to socialize, because of the fact that the hours I had working in the Brooklyn Navy Yard. And I always loved the Marines. I always loved the Air Corps. So I decided to leave the Brooklyn Navy Yard. I could have stood there all through the war because I was deferred. Because when you have that kind of a job, you're being deferred. You don't have to go into the military. But I decided to join the military. I went to the recruiting office of the United States Marines. And I was accepted, but they wouldn't put me in the part where they would train me how to fly a plane because I didn't have the proper education for that.
When was this? When did you join the...
I joined the Marines in June of 1943. I joined the Marines. And I had training in the Parris Island in South Carolina for 90 days. And we had all kinds of training. And after
they trained you to be a combatant, right?
Oh, yes, yeah. Anybody goes to Parris Island to be trained, you get the same training, whether you're a foot soldier or whether you don't know where you're going to go until you finish your training. So you all have to get the same kind of training. It's a very rigid training for the whole 90 days. You're in the power of your instructor, and these guys are tough. They really were. They didn't take no crap from anybody. I mean, you could have a little sergeant. He'd go up to your face and forget about it. So, because they were concerned that you had to learn to protect yourself in time of any kind of battle that you might get into. From Hawaii, we were dispersed in different islands. We were over in Guadalcanal, Solomon Islands, the Gilbert Islands, the Marshall Islands.
When did you go there? 1943.
All the end of 1943, and all through 1944 and 45, through those years. And then we were in Saipan, and then we went to the Philippines, Mindanao, Mindoro. These are the different islands in there. We went through the Leyte, where there was the big battle that went on. That was one of the biggest battles in the whole Pacific of the war. The Second World War was done in Leyte because the Japanese were trying to hold on to the Philippines, and they lost it.
What was your job during the war?
I handled all the parts for all the vehicles that were used in the Marine Air Corps ground crew. I was attached to the 3rd Air Wing of the Marine Air Corps. During the course of hopping around all these different islands, during those periods and during those years, we came across a lot of things that were a little upsetting. We saw bodies here and there. Actually, buildings were devastated from the bombings that the American planes had to do to take over these different islands and bring them back to the American control. Then we had the incidents, like I told you, where hopping around these islands that we did for almost 2 years. There were no facilities, no bathrooms, no water. We had our own well equipment. We had to dig wells on every island we were on in order to take a shower or go to the bathroom, because there were no enclosures. We had no kitchens. We had no mess hall to eat in. Everything we did was on the outside. And thank God, in those islands, you got warm weather. What went on is, besides the work that we had to do, we had to go around the island and see if there were any more Japanese military people left. Because some of them weren't captured; they were hiding in the hills and all that. But during the night, they'd come and attack our tents, and they would use a lot of propaganda, and they would yell out with loudspeakers, "Marines, go home, because tonight you're going to die." Try to scare you. And then there was also the propagandist Tokyo Rose. You turn on the radio and you hear her voice every single day, playing all the beautiful music and telling us, "You Marines should go back home. Your loved ones are waiting for you. Don't stay here and fight a useless war, because you're not going to win the war. The Japanese soldiers are going to keep everything that they had." One island we were on, we had to dig our own foxholes, because we were going to get bombed. Somehow they knew that the area we were in. And I guess there was a lot of knowledge of this, because Tokyo Rose used to tell us on the radio our outfits, where we are, and where we're going. So they knew all this ahead of time. And what we had to do that, I'll never forget, this one night after we done the foxholes, there was some bombing going on, and we all had our M1 rifles in positions, and they told us what area to shoot our guns at, the M1 guns that we had. And we had tracer bullets, so you knew where your bullets were going. And they directed us, our sergeants and these guys, directed us where to shoot during that period of time. One of the islands we were on, some of the Marines came across prostitutes. And these women here, they wanted an American dollar. And the Marines had to pay a certain fee. But what happened is the male population found out about it, and they caught these Marines, and they killed them and cut them up. And then the next day, the same Marine group came back, the guys that were still alive, and they bombed out the whole village. That was terrible, because I don't think the Marines understood, or these guys that were doing it, that there could be children there. Well, we really didn't have too much food to speak of. That's why I went in the Marines at 195 pounds, and when I came home, or when I was leaving the Pacific, I was 165. I lost 30 pounds.
Scar tissue that I wish you